Hi, I'm Tess from Tess Jean Patterns, and today's tutorial is for a ruched backless halterneck top. This style is so beautiful on, and it's actually really easy to sew. I've specifically designed this with a beginner sewer in mind. You don't need an overlocker. If you have got a sewing machine and you can sew a straight line, then you can make this top. It's that straightforward. The top is two pieces, like a big rectangle and then a smaller rectangle for the neckline, and then the straps. And then what's good about it is it has rows of adjustable ruching. So there's a bit of leeway in the fit, like you don't have to get it fitting perfectly as you're making it, because in the final step, we're going to thread through the ties and then ruche the top on the ties, and you're gonna basically gather it to your body and get it looking and fitting perfectly. I'm excited to share this top with you because I feel like a lot of beginner sewing projects out there tend to lean towards a bit of a crafty aesthetic, perhaps something you would make in homeroom tech class at school. So I wanted to show you that you can actually make something that you're going to wear. So the fabric I have today is this beautiful yellow cotton poplin. It's a really nice weight, it's not too thick, so that's it there. I recommend starting with a cotton if you are a new sewer because it's super easy to press and sew. If you have a little bit more confidence, a linen or a viscose rayon linen blend would also be stunning in this top with the ruching. I think it would just sit really nicely. What else? You only need 1 meter or 1 yard. I'm also going to include imperial measurements in today's video for those viewers from the US. I did buy a lot of fabric. I bought 6 meters because it was the end of the roll, and I also want to make some matching trousers to go with this top, and I didn't want to go back to the shop and find the fabric had gone. But luckily, fabric is super affordable in Vietnam. For those interested, I think this was about 50,000 Vietnamese dong, which is $2 to $3 per meter. So this did not break the bank. So let's go make the pattern. You need a tape measure, so you can take your measurements to draft the pattern. We're only going to work on half of the pattern because the center front of the pattern is going to be cut on the fold of the fabric. You need a right angle ruler. If you don't have this, then a book works perfectly fine. You can align your ruler onto the corners to get that right angle. And then for paper, just whatever you have lying around, tape some A4 pieces together, craft paper, baking paper, newspaper, whatever you have is all good. I'm also going to use my mannequin to help show you where the rows of ruching are going to sit and to help explain the pattern too. So the very first step, we're going to draw in the center front, which is this line on the mannequin, and we're going to square off and draw in the horizontal bust line, which is the fullest part of the bust. Draw your center front line towards the top, square off and draw a horizontal line for your bust line, and then label each line. So imagine the center front goes bang down the middle of your body. We're going to decide where we want our top to finish. So get your tape measure and align it in the center of your body. It doesn't have to be bang on accurate. Come around and decide where you want that edge to be. So I'm going to go back a little bit, like I don't want it to be too forward. So mine's 26 centimeters. Let's multiply this by 2 for the ruching. The side is parallel to the center front, so measure out from your center front line. My measurement multiplied by 2 is 52 centimeters. Measure a few points from your center front, then draw your side in, and don't worry about the length for now. So with a pin, we want to mark where our bust line is, which is the widest part on our body, because we're going to use this as the line to measure up for our rows of ruching and measure down for our rows of ruching. Find your bust line and mark it. Now the upper bust row sits like about here, and then it comes down to meet your side seam and your bust point. So it will come down like that. So what is that distance on you? Like, where do you want this line to sit? So for me, I am gonna go about here. 9 centimeters up from the bust line. And it also helps to add a little pin on the top you're wearing so you can see where that's going to go. Next, decide where you want your neckline to sit. So I want mine to be a fairly high halter neck. So go from this pin line and measure up. I want my neckline to sit about there. So that is from that pin is 11.5 centimeters. Now let's put in our underbust ruching. So you want this to sit comfortably under your bust. So measure down from your bust line pin. So for me, I am gonna go 8 centimeters. So put a pin in your top. So we have our neckline, we have our upper bust, our underbust. Now we wanna put the final row of ruching in. Now I recommend finding your natural waistline, which is this narrowest part of your waist. And the reason being is because if you go, for example, like a little bit lower, when you wear this top, it's just gonna naturally like ride up to that smallest part because that's where it's gonna wanna sit. So I recommend finding that small part and measuring down. So that's where your row of ruching is gonna go. So measure down from this pin. So I'm gonna go 9 centimeters down and put a pin in your top. The pins are just there as guides so you can figure out what each section is going to be. And then finally, where do you want your top to finish? So I want this part to be quite small because I want it to look like a little frilly hem. So I am going to go down about here. I'm going to go 8 centimeters. And then you can check all of your proportions. So visualize what's this going to look like, what's this part here going to look like, and then finally like your last little frilly hem piece. And you can move your pins up and down. Now we have the placement for all of our ruching. We have the neckline, the upper bust, under the bust, the waist, and then the hem. So I recommend doing a little drawing and writing down what all of your measurements are and include the center front line and the bust line. Next, we want to decide how wide our halter neck pattern piece is going to be. So we're going to measure from our center front and we're going to measure around to like the crease of our arm. So for me, I'm going to go 18 centimeters. Now bear in mind that this all gets gathered anyway, so you can adjust it later on. For the upper bust channel, measure up from your bust line and draw a horizontal line. So you're following your own measurements. Mine is 9 centimeters up. Just draw a longish line for now. It doesn't need to meet the side because we're going to come back to this line later. Under bust channel, measure down from your bust line. So whatever your measurement is, mine is 8 centimeters. Draw a line, this time all the way to the side. Now we need to create the channel for the tie, so draw another line just down, 2.4 centimeters or 1 inch. And then I like to put a wee squiggle through my channel so I can see it clearly. For the bottom channel, measure down from this line. My measurement is 9 centimeters, so follow your own measurement and then draw a horizontal line again all the way to the side and add in another channel 2.4 centimeters or 1 inch wide, just exactly the same as the previous one. Finally, add in your hemline. Mine is 8 centimeters down and draw all the way across to your side. Returning to your upper bust line, we need to add the width of the halter neck. Mine was 18 centimeters. Measure from the center front out and put a little line as a marker. Then from this point, we're going to draw a straight line to the side seam bust line point. This line is also a channel, so we'll add on a wide seam that will turn back and be stitched down to create a channel. So add on 2 centimeters or 3/4 of an inch seam allowance. Add a little line on that corner for the notch because that's where the halter neck will sew to. Down your sides, add 1.5 centimeters or 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and add exactly the same on the hem. We don't need to add a seam down the center front because that is cut on the fold. And cut out your pattern. We need to notch the channels so we know where to sew them. Only notch the side seam, not the center front, as that's cut on the fold. And also notch the halter neck point. I just want to show you quickly how the channels work. So the two lines will join with a seam to create a casing, which will then get edge stitched down to make a channel for the ties. Now let's make the halter neck pattern piece. Draw a straight line for your center front, label it, square off and draw a horizontal line. This is the width of your halter neck. So mine was 18 centimeters. Mark out from your center front and draw a parallel line. Now add the height of your halter neck, so that measurement you took from your upper bust to your neckline. Mine was 11.5 centimeters. Rule out a little bit of a squared line, making sure that's a nice right angle at that point. This is the outside edge of your halter neck, and we want to make this a little bit higher than your center front height. So we're going to add on 2 centimeters. So the center front height of my halter neck was 11.5 centimeters. So this height will be 13.5. Just put a little mark. Now we want to add a nice gentle curve from your outside edge point to your center front neck point. Just blend it into that squared line that you have there. This is your neckline. Add on your seam allowance. This is exactly the same as the sides of the top and the hem. So 1.5 centimeters or 5/8 of an inch. The seam allowance along the bottom of your halter neck should be exactly the same as what's on the top edge of your body pattern piece, because these two will sew together. So 2 centimeters or 3/4 of an inch seam allowance. The seam allowance on the neckline is also 2 centimeters or 3/4 of an inch. This will be folded down and edge stitched to create the channel for the halter neck tie. Again, no seam allowance on the center front because this is cut on the fold. And cut out your halter neck piece. Because the seam allowance is folded down and there's a curve for the neckline, the seam allowance is going to poke out a little bit on the edge. So we're just going to miter it at this point. And that is the pattern finished. Now we're going to cut the top out, so find a table space or floor space to lay your fabric out, and then with your right sides, your face side together, we want to fold it so the selvages align, and then smooth it out so there's no warping or creases going on. So align the center front of your 2 pattern pieces along the fold of your fabric and pin it flat. And then I've realized I've made a mistake. You don't actually need to put notches for this center front because it's on the fold. So don't worry about those. We just want to make sure that we are nicking these notches here and these ones. So just like a tiny little nick, like don't go too far into your seam allowance. And this one. We haven't made pattern pieces for the ties, so we're going to draw the rectangle shapes directly onto here and cut them out. So for the length of your ties, you're going to take your bust circumference and then you're going to add on an extra 70 centimeters, which will be the extra you need for tying at the back. So the total length of my tie is going to be 156 centimeters. Going to round that up to 160 to make it easy. Now that is a super long pattern piece. So we're going to put a seam in the middle of our tie. We're going to join like 2 pieces together to make one big long piece. So take your measurement and divide it by 2. So for me, it's going to be 80. So I'm going to go cut 1, 2, 3, 4 strips of 80 centimeters by 3 centimeters wide. And I only need to cut them out 4 because your fabric should be still on the fold. So essentially you're cutting out double. Now that you've cut out your top, before we do anything else, we're going to join one end of our ties. So 1 centimeter seam, 3/8 of an inch, so one end only, and do it for all 4. So one of these ties is going to be way too long for your neck. So I'm going to tie this around my neckline just to see what the bow looks like at the back and then trim a little bit off. So I'm going to cut off 20 centimeters. So to keep it even, 10 centimeters on each end. Next, we're going to fold with right sides together and press them. I'm going to show you 2 ways for sewing your ties today because I know a lot of you, if you're a new sewer, may not have this tool. So the first option is using a skewer and a chopstick or anything that's similar to these, something that's skinny and something that's a little bit thicker. You just need to make sure that they have 2 blunt ends. And the second option uses a loop turner. If you are going to be doing a lot of sewing, I definitely recommend purchasing one of these because it saves so much time. For your first option, sew down the tie, get to the corner, pivot, and finish it so it's closed. On the opposite end, we want to turn back the raw edge, fold it, and then press it. And this means we'll have a nice finished edge that we can close later. And then you're going to sew all the way down and then stop here, but leaving this end open. Sew the ties just shy of 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch. By sewing them slightly smaller, it means that they're going to fit through the channels nice and easy, and you're not going to have any issues with them getting stuck or twisting. And then on this corner, we want to trim in and miter it. So be careful that you don't cut into your stitching. Using your chopstick, push it into the closed end in the middle of the seam allowance, and then give it a little bit of a wiggle to try and turn the tie back on itself. Once you've got that, you can remove the chopstick and then insert your skinny stick like the skewer, making sure you've got the blunt end first. Push it through right down to the end, and then you can start turning the tie back out on itself. Sometimes it gets stuck on that seam, so you just need to give it a little wiggle and pull it through. And then use your skewer just to like poke these corners out while it's down there. So you get a nice square, and then go back to get the skewer out. Option 2, if you have a loop turner, on either ends of your ties you want to turn back the raw edge and press so you have a nice folded end. Sew your ties, again just slightly smaller than 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch, so it will glide through your channel nice and easily. Sew down your tie, leaving both ends open. Now using the loop turner, insert it into your tie all the way down to the end, and then you want to catch with the hook into the fabric and close it, and then pull it back so the tie turns on itself. Make sure the ends are nice and flat, and we're going to edge stitch them closed. Now we're going to press all our ties. You want to roll the seam so it kind of comes out a little bit. You should now have 4 nicely pressed ties. On the halterneck piece, we want to turn under the outside edges so we have a finished edge. Open your pattern piece and flip it over so we're working on the wrong side. We're going to turn the outside edges under, so 1.5 centimeters or 5/8 of an inch. And then we want to fold this raw edge under again. So fold it in so it nearly meets the crease line. Basically tuck it under and press. And do it on the other side as well, making sure that both sides are even. And exactly like we've done on the edges here, we're going to do on the edges of the top. Before we sew this down, we just want to open up and mark our notches because we're going to lose them otherwise. So heat erasable pen or chalk or a pin, mark these out because we're going to press them in later. Now we want to edge stitch this down, so we're going to sew very close to the folded edge. And do the same for your top as well. We want to do both edges. Now on the curved neckline, we're going to fold the top edge down 8 millimeters or 1/4 of an inch. And then we're going to fold it again 1/2 inch or 1.2 centimeters. Now the reason we're folding it 1.2 and not 1 centimeter is because the draw cords are 1 centimeter wide, so we need a little bit of wiggle room. Now you can see I haven't mitered the pattern correctly, and we've got this weird point sticking out, which we don't want. So to fix it, I'm going to trim it off and fold it to the inside. Now edge stitch the casing along the neckline and make sure that this distance is not smaller than the width of your tie. Working on the wrong side of your top. Now let's create the channels for the ties. So starting with the one closest to your hem, we want to pull the notches together so they meet. From the notch to the folded edge should be 1.2 centimeters or half an inch. Pin it, and then do the same for the other side. Now measure from hem edge to the fold and press. And do this at various points to ensure the channel has been folded straight from side to side. It should measure the same all the way along. Then put a few pins in to secure it. And sew a 1.2 or half an inch seam all the way along this edge. And now we're going to do the same for this one here. Now whatever this distance is from this stitch line to the fold, we want to make sure that it's continued. So measure this distance, so 10.2 centimeters. I'm going to press this all along, making sure that this distance is 10.2 all along here. And just like we've done here, we're going to sew a 1.2 or half an inch seam along here to create another casing. We're now going to press both of these casings down towards the hem. Put some pins in to keep it flat. We're now going to edge stitch each of these casings to make our channel for our tie. So we want to stitch right along this edge here. And just like the neckline, we want to make sure that the width is no smaller than the width of the tie, because this needs to thread through. So this is what the top's looking like now. We've put in our 2 channels here on the body that will make beautiful ruching. We've also done the neckline channel. Now the last one to do is this one here that runs along the upper bust. So with your right sides facing up, we're going to get the halter neck piece and we're going to flip it down so the right sides are facing each other, and match up the notches on either side, pin this down. So from this side all the way around to this point, and the seam allowance is 2 centimeters or 3/4 of an inch. To this point, stop, lift your foot and pivot. Now with our iron, we want to fold this edge down, turning the row of stitching just to the inside. So on the right side, you can't see any stitch line. And then when you get to this corner, you're going to have a little bit of excess fabric. So we're just going to tuck it under. So you can see there's a little fold here. Now we want to fold under this raw edge so we can create the casing. Fold it under 8 millimeters or 1/4 of an inch, and then do it all the way along the edge. So the width of this one should be exactly the same as these. Now let's edge stitch it down. So all that's left to do is the hem, and then we're going to thread through the ties in the 1, 2, 3, 4 channels to create our beautiful ruching. For the hem, we're going to do exactly the same as we've done for the sides. So turn it up 1.5 centimeters or 5/8 of an inch and press. And then we're going to fold that edge under again and press once more. Edge stitch your hem. The top is nearly finished. So we just have one big flat piece now. We need to add some shape to it. Grab your ties, we're going to thread them through the channels and then ruche it up. So find your short tie and set it aside because that's your neckline tie. You need a safety pin, pin it on the end, and let's begin ruching. So thread this through. So you don't want the seam on your tie to show, so make sure that is sitting like inside your top somewhere. So I need to pull it through so it's more in the middle. And I'm just going to keep it flat for now until I've threaded through my other ties because it's so much easier. If you have one of these are honestly a game changer and makes your life so much easier. You basically thread it through that hole, pin it, and then you just go like this. Like, how fast was that? Now we are ready to ruche it all up. So we're gonna ruche it as much as we can, and then we're gonna put it on our bodies and distribute the gathers around us how we like. So just pull it in evenly, like either side. This is just looking so gorgeous. I can't wait to try this on and see how it looks. So I'm just gonna pull this out to where I want the sides to sit, and then I'm gonna have to distribute the gathering. I'm just gonna hold the microphone because I don't wanna clip it onto this beautiful top. So this has worked out perfect. I'm really happy with it. This is actually the first time that I have sewn this. I haven't done a mock-up, so I'm really happy with how it's worked out. There's one more step which is optional for you if you like. You can go to your sewing machine once you're happy where the side seams are, and you can put a little tacking stitch onto each of the ties to hold it in place so that it doesn't slide back and forth. For me, I'm going to leave it like this because I might want to adjust it later on. Maybe even try crisscross the straps at the back and see how that wears. So I think from here I'm going to try a version with a back for a more wearable everyday top, and I love this so much. I'm going to have to put it into a dress as well, so I'm going to have a wee think about that and film some more videos for you guys. And that's us done for today. I hope your top has turned out beautiful and you're going to get lots of wear out of it. If you have come across any questions along the way, please drop them in the comments so I can answer them, because chances are other sewers have also had similar questions, so you'll be helping them out as well. And feel free to tag me on social media, testing patterns, or even DM me a photo of your creation. I'm so excited to see how these have turned out and how you've made them your own. And finally, do you have any suggestions for me for videos that I can make? I want to hear your thoughts. Perhaps you've seen something that you want to sew, but you can't find a tutorial on it. Thanks, bye.